Good evening and welcome back, everyone. So tonight I had hoped to go over all of the cool stuff that was announced at Microsoft Build this last week. Unfortunately, I have been so swamped I haven't been able to review them myself. So, for anyone who is confused and wondering what is Microsoft Build, let me show you. So, this guy here, it is Microsoft's, I'll say, premier developer conference every year. There's pretty much two big conferences that Microsoft does every year, Build and Ignite. Build tends to be a little bit more developer focused, so it's usually the one that I am most interested in. But all of the sessions are recorded and available, and they will be up for, I believe they said, until the Build conference next year. So if you want to get in and dive through and see all of the content, it is there at mybuild.microsoft.com. So, and I think it's probably, let me just check. I think it's also at aka MS build. Yes. So aka.ms.build will also get you there as well. So I know there was lots of cool stuff, and I've seen tweets about lots of cool stuff. I just don't know enough to actually talk through some of it right now. However, there are cool updates that came in the latest Visual Studio drop. So if you are like me and running preview versions, watch for that little update notification in the bottom right-hand corner. Click the button, run the update. Should be good. I ran mine yesterday. We're to see. Haven't done a lot of development yet with it. Things could go wrong, but most of the time things just get a little bit more awesome. Tonight, I wanted to dive back to a project I've shown before called XAMLTest. So this is something that is used for doing UI testing largely inside the material design and XAML project. And I leverage this project very heavily. It's a little different than a lot of UI testing frameworks. A lot of UI testing frameworks tend to go through the accessibility API. Because they're designed to sort of simulate what would a user do to interact with your app. They also are great for validating that your app is accessible. The problem is that wasn't really the intent that I wanted for UI testing in the material design project. Because the material design project is designed to be styles and custom controls and themes, I didn't want just the accessibility API surfaced to me. I wanted the actual rendered UI surfaced up to me. I basically wanted like the live visual tree or the Snoop interaction type stuff, but only in test form so that I could write tests against it. So that's what this is. This is something that gives me a much deeper integration into that UI so that we can do things like validate, hey, did my appropriate theme brush get specified? Did this, various component of my template get aligned correctly, that kind of thing. So this kind of came up because I was trying to write some test in the material design project for some bugs that got reported last week, and I ran into some bugs. So I think I addressed some of those issues, but then I started looking at my backlog, and I'd really like to get this to a solid 1.0 release. And so more importantly, what I was hoping to look at is one of the ones that I'd kind of been toying with for a while. So if let me pull up some of the material design. I don't think I have them open at the moment, but let me get the project open because I think it makes a little more sense when you see how some of these tests are written. So for a lot of these tests, you kind of you basically pull out the element, maybe do something to it, click on it, type into it or whatnot, to effectively trigger the part that we care about, and it then interrogate the results of it. So if we come back here, and I think I'm probably off on a branch a little bit, but that's fine. That's fine. So specifically these UI tests here, and if we go and pick on color zones, probably good enough. You end up writing some tests that look a little bit like this, and the tests tend to be fairly simple. I've got a base class that adds some helper functionality that's specific to the material design project, so nothing overly fancy. But the tests start off with doing something simple of, okay, let's go ahead and create a window and load up this XAML into the window, and then more importantly, it gives you back this visual element. And this visual element, just by convention, I know that it's the root element that I passed into this string here, and I know it's a color zone. And the problem that I have with this is what I really want to do is have a type-safe way of interacting with these visual elements, because right now, because this is just a generic interface that all elements fall underneath of, it doesn't really give me a lot of ways of controlling what properties are available on. Now, all properties, or I should say all dependency properties on UI elements are surfaced via a get property method, but there's a lot of convenience methods like this get background color. And we should be able to expand this guy out. And it's gonna be garbage. We'll just go back here and do it here. So for example, color zone get property. And this is the generic property that ends up actually doing all of the work. You feed it a property name and the desired conversion type, and out it comes. And so all of those other helper methods are basically fancy wrappers around this get property method. There's nothing overly exciting about what it's doing. It effectively just walks through an object's hierarchy looking for a property with this name and converts it to the appropriate type and returns it back. Great, not a big deal. But what I'd really like is something that's a little more type safe. I'd really like to have like visual element of color zone. And then more importantly, I would like this thing to have appropriate methods on it based upon what is on color zone. That's really what I'm looking for. So my thought that I had, and I think this will work. Haven't gotten far enough to confirm. So here's my thought. I wrote it. So inside of XAMLTest, I wrote a little test to kind of start this with. Let's see, visual element test. It's at the very bottom. Got a bunch of tests. I want to write this code here. So this is oftentimes when I'm playing around with trying to figure out what should an API look like. Quite often what I will do is I will write the code that I want it to be, and then I'll just beat the library into submission until I get the particular API to work. Because typically I start with what I want and then kind of try to figure out, okay, how would this implementation work? And so I started realizing what I'd really like to write is get element. And so this is the primary way that you effectively retrieve an element from your visual tree. And there's some fancy syntax that goes into this. So I want to be able to do get element. But then more importantly, I also want to do something where I can then, on that get element, I want to have an isDefault property. This isn't a fancy extension. You can see that built into the library right now, there's this whole mixins thing with pretty much a whole bunch of helper methods. And that's just a bunch. And I realized this seems like the perfect use case for some source generators. More importantly, I'm thinking that we can get far enough to where we can embed the source generator inside of our NuGet package. That way, not only can this because XAMLTest, I anticipate using the source generators for all the built-in WPF types. But what would be cooler is if I could put the source generator into my NuGet package and then apply it inside of the material design project to all of its custom control types. That excites me. So that's what we're going to try and get working tonight. So what have I done so far? I've written a test. That's what I want. I've created an visual element that has a generic parameter for the element type, and it derives from the base visual element. So nothing fancy. And the base one contains a second overload of get element with this particular T type. And that's kind of where I set it up. I'm not 100% sold on this API here. The fact that I have to have two of these kind of makes me a little weird. I don't know. We'll think about it. I'm mostly okay with it. Not 100%. Mostly okay. I then went through and said, okay, let's go through and write a generator project. So the generator project is expected to be net standard, and these are the magical base libraries. And to build a source generator in .NET, once you've referenced the appropriate NuGet packages, you need a class, and you need it to derive from iSourceGenerator and be decorated with the generator attribute. Those are the kickers that you have to actually do. And then depending on which blog post you're looking at, because some of the documentation when this first dropped was written against preview versions of the API. The landing API, if you copy from a blog post, you might end up with the wrong context. The one that's actually on iSource generator is what you're looking for. So it should be generator execution context. And then inside of these things, and this is largely based on one of their sample projects. Let me see if I can find where I put that. Of course, I closed it. So let's see. C# source generator samples. This one. So there we have here. So this buried inside of here, and I'll drop this link in there as well. As soon as I figure out where my chat box went. There it is. Okay. So buried inside of the Roslyn SDK, there is this. Oh, go away. I don't need the banner. Is this source generators folder. And so they have a bunch of examples in here about generating out some work. And specifically, this mustache generator was the one that I was most interested in because it's, I think, the closest to what I want. Now, if you're unfamiliar with some of the Roslyn APIs, which I'll admit I'm pretty unfamiliar with them, they aren't horrible to work with. The important thing to remember with source generators is that they're purely additive. So you cannot manipulate things that are part of the code that you're adding to. So you can do things like extend, say, partial classes, partial methods, that kind of thing, but you can't necessarily go into an existing method and tweak its contents. That's not a thing that a source generator can do. So what ends up happening under the hood is when you compile a project that's using a source generator, it does the compilation, builds up the AST, the syntax tree for that compilation, hands it off to the source generators. The source generators can add to it, and then the compilation goes and finishes. And so the end result at the end is you have, original source code plus generated source code all compiled into one. Everyone's happy. So my plan is to actually use a source generator to go through and generate up all of those helper extension methods for a given generic type of T. Now, the question will be what types to actually generate for that. And so my thought is that what I'm going to do is create this. Where is it? I thought I had done it already. Is it nested somewhere? I thought I had generate helpers attribute. I did put it in the hidden somewhere. So my thought is that I'm going to have this attribute, and this attribute will declare what are the T parameters for iVisualElement where I should generate helpers. So my thought is to simply, for a given T, if this guy is set, go through and generate all of the needed helpers for that. Seems simple enough. So that way, I can go through and add in a bunch of these generate helpers for, say, in this case, button, which is what we're picking on here first, right? We're just going to start with one control, build out the rest of them later. And then I can, get all of the stuff that's normally inside a WPF. And then from there, we can look at things and go, okay, so instead of just button, now I want to have, my custom control. Like in the material design project, maybe I throw in dialog host, for example, and have it generate all of the related properties on that. So that's where we're going, and that's what I'm hoping to get working. So inside of the generator so far, what I have done, and based on that sample, when this generator is initialized, it registers for some syntax notification, and then it is going to do some work to try and find, and this is why I picked on that mustache one, is it's going to go looking for an attribute and then add some stuff into a list. And so obviously this method needs to be actually flushed out and done. It's going to take those items into a list, and then the easiest way to generate the source code inside of these APIs is just write them as strings. There's nothing fancy about this. You can build up anything that, or I should say anything that you can do in C#, you can just generate here. You can get fancier with some of the Roslyn APIs and do some fancy buildings, because at the end you're just looking to add things into that compiled syntax tree. But for now, we're going to leverage this. Let's see. I'm going to change this real quick. Boom. We're gonna just update that stream title. That way, if anybody's interested in source generators, that's what we've got. So I've written a little bit of code here that expects, it iterates over that list that we expect to populate. So it expects to get a set of types. Each type is expected to have some set of dependency properties. The properties are expected to know things about like, can I read, can I write? And then I haven't made these interpolated strings yet. There is an assumption that these will be. Sup, Robert? We're having WPF related fun tonight. So building out source generators for WPF for XAMLTest. That's the thought, because that will be awesome. Okay. So let's see. I think we're going to go here next and see if we can get this working, because I would love to get a basic source generator at least parsing so that I can see some progress. Side note, I don't think your links are making it into Discord. Well, that is disappointing, though that is actually to be expected. Shoot, I forgot about that. I need to take a note to go through and add those. So I broke the integration that I had because I changed the way I was interacting with the chat, and the middleware that I was using previously is what was doing the Discord integration. But I did fix my video export integration. That much is working. If you haven't seen it yet, Robert, here, I'll show this. You will appreciate the craziness that is my YouTube mockery. So if you want to see some absolutely crazy stuff, this project here, I'll just drop this in. Boom. This guy here kicks off. So there's some GitHub actions that you'll see that just run on timers. And so the key one, import videos, watches my Twitch stream for new videos. When it finds them, it downloads them, trims off the silent bits at the beginning, uploads them to YouTube, pre-populates all of the YouTube fields with some pre-canned stuff that I have just to make my life easier, sets all the relevant metadata for me, and then leaves the video as private so that I can go and choose when to schedule it. And then generates subtitles, watches for new YouTube videos, downloads the generated subtitle track from Google, converts it into Markdown, and then checks it into this repository, which roughly boils down to the idea of I can now search my YouTube videos in Markdown using GitHub, because I'm that level of lazy. But it saves me a bunch of time from trying to like do the magical conversion bits. The next bit that I want to get back up and running is previously I had Twitter integration built into this with some logic apps. And at one point I broke that and I need to put it back in. So the magic. Okay. Also, did you watch Build this week, Robert? Was there anything cool? I honestly haven't had a chance to watch hardly any sessions, so if there's cool stuff, tell me where to go look. Yes, Restream is what I was playing with. The problem I had was Restream had a constant issue of keeping things updated. It reports back success on calls that aren't always successful, and that frustrated me to no end, because the number of times I had like wrong stream titles or wrong timing, it was really annoying me. Oh, good. I'm glad I'm not the only one missing out on cool build stuff. I've seen lots of tweets of cool stuff, so I know there's cool stuff. I just don't know what it is yet. And I'm sure it's awesome. I did see lots of drops, like there's a bunch of libraries kicked out new updates for like Project Reunion. There was a bunch of updates that got dropped. I think I saw a version like 0.80. The latest preview got dropped. There was a bunch of Visual Studio updates. I know I saw stuff around improvements for like the XAML designer. I know the unit testing window got a bunch of updates. Visual Studio 2022. Yeah, Visual Studio 2022. Preview is supposed to launch. I don't know if they said a date. I think I heard somewhere. Something like that. So, very excited for that. Okay. I don't know why we would look for an argument count of 3. Let's see. Type. And I think we're not going to go to display string. Let's do name. Yeah, I'm wondering if I need to be more explicit on my... let's move you into your own file because you're just going to confuse me if I leave you there. And then I'm going to actually move you into that same file. Nope, not that one. Boom. Oh, it moved the assembly. Oh, interesting. Okay. Interesting choice, Visual Studio. Okay, so I'm not 100% sure that generate helpers is going to be clean enough. Okay, so it's hunting the attribute list, and I don't actually care too much about that. So let's look here and see. Oh, is argument list. So I kind of want to look through. Let's see, arguments is clearly the way in there. I kind of want to iterate over the arguments. What is on each argument? Because I'd like to be a little freeing about what I allow. Just properties for the moment. Okay, so on an argument, expression, full stand. Because it's important to note when you're building an analyzer, you're acting on the syntax tree from Roslyn, which means you're not necessarily, it's not like reflection where you're acting on a resolved type. You're acting on something that will become a resolve type, probably. Raw kind, that's not what we want. I almost want to just kind of want to just do this. And I kind of want to dive in and debug this and see what, just sort of make sure we get all the way into here. So the XAMLTest project is in fact referencing the generator as a source generator, but I'm trying to remember the magical trick to debug it. I think you can just do I don't want to do it here. I want to do it up here. I think if I go build, it kicks it off. There we go. So this will be fun. I think I should do a new instance because it's going to get weird if I debug my source generator in the build. Don't. Debugger cannot be started. Would you like to choose another? Yes. I don't know why. Okay, let's go into our existing one. This is probably going to get to be all kinds of weird recursion. So we hit build, and now we're launching a debugger from within our own build. There's no way this is going to go belly up. Okay, so I'm curious now if I hit this visit syntax node or if I hit this next. Total chicken and the egg moment. Yes, and I have to be careful. I wrote a little CLI app the other night that I released, and it was doing pinvoke on Windows, and I quickly learned that is a great way to get yourself into trouble fast. Oh, so that didn't... So we got this guy back, but we didn't get anything, obviously, because we never got inside our if. So now I'm realizing I probably should have had a breakpoint here. and we'll let that guy continue. I assume the debug session will end because the generator should complete. I love how it shows build succeeded. That's exciting. Let's stop debugging. Okay, so let's build again. The weirdest way to launch your debugger is by building. I have to admit that is, and I think there's a cleaner way to actually debug source generators. I might go Google it here in a second because. Okay, so we got it into here. Context, node, compilation unit, blah blah blah. So what is the node here? Compilation unit syntax. Ooh. Speak to the difference between Gitkraken, fork, and Sourcetree. So okay, so just so you're already clearly intimately aware that I love my Gitkraken very, very much. So I am happy to provide you with a complete pros list on all things Gitkraken. I'm very good at that. So let's see here. I don't believe I've ever used Sourcetree, so I think I will ignore that one. That one completely, because that one. Well, let me just double check, because I've had to do various evaluations of other Git tools before, and I don't think I ever played with Sourcetree. Yeah, I think the most I may have touched this is when I was evaluating different tools, and I don't believe I may have downloaded it and tried it once, but I don't think I've spent any significant time with Sourcetree, so I won't comment on that one. Fork I have played with a little bit, because right about the time I got very excited with Gitkraken, I think is when Fork came out, and there was a lot of people really excited about Fork. And it's a really good tool. Ultimately, at the end of the day, I don't know. I guess I'd be curious why you need the pro cons list for this. Only because what I usually tell people is use any Git tool that you can be productive with. But I understand that some places, like, company wants to buy a large swath of licenses and they're not buying two tools, they're buying one, and they want to standardize and yada yada, right? So that kind of makes some sense. So my feelings when I played around with Fork is it was a very good Git tool. It worked really well. I had no issues with it. My biggest complaint, or I guess the thing that I didn't like as much about it, and it comes back to what I love most about Gitkraken, is the history tree. For me, the two things that I look for in a Git GUI tool is showing me the history tree and my ability to reason about the relationship between commits and branches. If I'm not on the command line and I'm using a GUI, I want that visual. Like, the whole reason I'm in a GUI is because I want visuals. I'm not looking for, like, I'm willing to sacrifice some power in exchange for pretty visuals, because that's what I'm looking for. And with Git, that history and the relationships is what matters most. And for me, and even these two screens here kind of show it off, I am not as much a fan of this view of the history as I am here. And this is, I would say, complete preference based, because both of these views do show you effectively the exact same information. There is really no functional difference. You've got a chronological list of commits. You've got some relationship between branches. I mean, like, in my mind, it gets a little. I don't like this view of how the individual commits are tied to the branch name followed by this. I prefer this section here. I much prefer being able to do this collapsing. And maybe Fork has added improvement since I tried it, because it has been months since I've played with it. But effectively, you have pretty much the same thing. And they've got the same kind of UI, repos across multiple tabs. Your primary buttons are listed right on the top. Most of your kind of navigation bits for your branches is on the side, very similar to GitKraken. Like, there is a lot of overlap between these two tools, and I can totally understand why people fell in love with Fork so much. I'm not familiar with their pricing models and their release bits, so I have not evaluated cost of each of these. I will say, because I'm fairly familiar with GitKraken's pricing model, they've got basically 3 tiers: free, pro, and enterprise. The free tier is great if you are a student doing open source work, and not on DevOps. And typically, if you're on Azure DevOps, you're probably not doing open source work anyway, in general. Like, if you're doing open source work, you're probably on GitHub. Because GitKraken, there are some features that I use heavily on a day-to-day basis that do require a pro license. And you can, despite my big head's blocking it, but you can see I am on a pro version of GitKraken. Specifically, the selling feature for me on the pro one is the Azure DevOps integration, because in my day-to-day work, I interact with a lot of repos that are out on Azure DevOps. I need that integration in order to function in any reasonable manner. So, but if you are doing open source, or you're a student or similar, GitKraken's great for that. It's free. Have at it. Go for it. It's just, as soon as you start to get into that kind of enterprisey level stuff, that's when you're going to start paying for features. And I feel like GitKraken folks, they did a good job of kind of separating and not having their free tier suck like a lot of tools are, that where the free tier is kind of just this basic entry level and you can't be productive. GitKraken free is great. The pro adds a lot to it, but if you're doing open source work, GitKraken is awesome. Definitely my recommended go-to tool. I'm trying to think if there's anything. Yeah, I don't know if there's anything more that I would say. If you wanted to throw another tool onto the list, I don't know if you have another one. One that I know, and I'm only saying this because I have a coworker that will wring my neck if I don't mention Git Extensions. Because again, everybody has their that not the right button. Everybody has their pet tool of choice. So Git Extensions is his pet tool of choice that he very much loves. I do not love this interface. I do not find that it helps me understand the Git flow. Yeah, that's the one that you turned me on to, Robert. that's why it's sitting up here in my little history tree to play with. But the one thing that Git Extension does that a lot of Git GUI tools do not do is, rather than working with some sort of like Git SDK, it'll actually show you the CLI command that would be the equivalent of what command it was running. So it does have that feature. So especially if somebody's coming from a CLI Git integration background, or somebody's wanting to try to use the GUI to augment learning the CLI, Git Extensions does a good job of that. Like GitKraken, they use, I'm trying to remember, there's a Git library that they use to actually do their interaction. They're not just invoking like the Git CLI behind the scenes for you. There's actually an SDK that they're interacting with to do all of that work. But Git Extensions will show you that CLI command as part of their UI, which, if somebody's looking to go back and forth between them, is good. I really do not like this UI. I do not like that. I don't feel like I get a good idea of the relationship between branches and that kind of thing. But again, I know there's at least one person I work with, and this is very much his tool of choice. Like I said at the beginning, pick a tool where you can be effective, and that's what I think the right one is. Because when I bring on new devs and they're trying to figure out Git and they're asking which one to use, I usually tell them, pick one, learn it, and be effective with it. I don't care which one. Tried mixing the CLI and GitKraken. Yes, I actually do it quite a lot. So specifically, there are some commands that don't exist in GitKraken. Git bisect is the primary command. So Git Bisect basically lets you do a binary search through your history tree when you're trying to track down where a bug occurred, which is very handy. Basically, you it will do the binary search and jump between the commits for you, and at each commit it will pause. You then compile your source code, run whatever tests you need to determine whether bug present, bug not present, and then you just go back to the CLI and say yes, bug was present, no it wasn't, and it uses that to hone in on what commit actually caused the problem. And if you get really good and you can do your testing with a script, you can actually have it do the whole process for you and just come back when you're done. And it'll track down where things occurred, which is great. So if you've got a bug, you're not sure when it was introduced, and you need to track it down, that will work. Git Kraken does a very good job of playing nice and not holding on to file handles. So it does work well. There are the one of the issues that Git Kraken does run into problems with, and it's not really Git Kraken's fault. It's kind of the fault of Windows, kind of the fault of Visual Studio. But for example, if you are debugging a project, for example, so here's the one that bites me all the time. I'll just show it to you. So I teach at a local university. This is this is a repo for a current class that is occurring. But you'll note that we have various assignment branches. And as part of the class, we build out this Secret Santa application. And so all of the assignment branches have this Secret Santa folder. But if we look at our lecture branches do not have that Secret Santa folder. They have this user group. So basically, during class, we build out a user group project, which has a lot of identical functionality. But for the actual assignment, we have the students work in a different project. That means when you're switching branches, you're actually there. Unlike a lot of projects where only individual files may be changing on a branch switch, we've got major directory structures. The entire solution is gone when you switch branches. And so especially if you're in a state where Visual Studio is, say, compiling or working with one of those things, Git Kraken will run into a problem when you try to jump one of those branches and it goes, well, I need to delete this file, but something's holding onto the file and it won't let go of it. So that's the one area of Git Kraken where it runs into problems if something outside of it's holding onto. Or hypothetically, I've left a terminal program running with a .NET watch command or similar, and something's holding onto file handles there. So those types of things Git Kraken is not hip to. Not completely its fault, because those are things outside of it that it really doesn't have a lot of control over. But it is not okay with trying to do that kind of interaction, and you kind of end up in this weird state where when you try to do that branch jump, you get an error message telling you, hey, I couldn't do this, but rather than rolling back to the state where it is in before, it just stops where it's currently at, which can be kind of annoying, because when it stops where it's currently at, you get these files that are in a halfway state. So not great at all, but it works. The other comment I will make, and again, I'll just keep plugging Git Kraken. I'm on a roll. Git Kraken customer support is awesome. Absolutely awesome. Oh, and yes, I'm not surprised that you may not have hit that situation, Robert. It doesn't happen a lot. It kind of requires jumping between branches where there's significant changes and where file locking will be a problem. Most of the time, it shows an error saying it's something that, and I assume the error is bubbling up from the operating system. It's something like file in use or similar. I don't recall exactly what it is. So it at least gives you a strong hint that a file is in use, but it's the same kind of Windows error message that you get where it doesn't actually tell you who's using the file. Very annoying. But it at least gives you some kind of information to start tracking. And usually the first thing I do is I just go along my task list. Okay, what did I leave running, right? Kill, relaunch. No, but the other absolutely awesome thing about Git Kraken, their customer support is Johnny on the spot and really good. Occasionally you interact with some customer support where it's like, did you even read my bug report? Very rarely, I sometimes actually get a little lazy submitting bug reports to them by not doing a nice full write-up, because they oftentimes can read it, and I assume they must be developers or fairly tech savvy people in their customer support, because they're pretty good about going, yep, got your error, got it logged for the dev team. We'll let you know when there's an update coming out with it. Keep an eye on the release notes. It's like, thank you very much. Like I filed an error with them about the little zoom control last, and they usually reply back, and it's typically under 24 hours, saying, yep, got it taken care of. And I had kind of combined a bug report and a feature request, and they're like, don't worry about it, because I would really like to be able to go above 130%. Specifically when presenting, oftentimes this isn't quite big enough and I'd like to go a little bigger. And so I was like, hey, that'd be great. They're like, no problem. Got it logged. We'll let you know. Keep an eye on the release notes. I was like, yes, that's what we want. That's the level of customer support we want. So, okay, I will be done plugging Git Kraken now. But they're awesome. Completely awesome. I'm going to check which corner of my green screen is showing. I'm just noticing I got a little... There. Had a little... There's a little thingy you're like, right there. Yeah. So, again, I am completely biased. Yeah, Git Kraken and Mountain Dew. Two things I'm very happy to plug because they are awesome products. I should make a note. Somebody reached out and suggested that I apply for the Git Kraken Ambassador program. I'm like, sure, I should probably do that at some point. I plug them enough. They have an awesome product. I would happily do that for them. They've got a requirement that you have to publish at least 4 things about Git Kraken a year, and I was like, that sounds kind of like the month of October for me. Yeah, that's about right. Hacktoberfest drops, and I just plug Git Kraken all day long. So, plus in my day job, I keep running into new developers, and I've done a lot of Git training for various people in the last couple months, and I always preface it with, okay, I'm going to show you this in Git Kraken and see how, you can decide what tool you like best. And very consistently, when people watch me use it, they go, oh, that was really easy. Or people will say, hey, we're having this issue doing this merge. There's conflicts. It's like, sure. I drop in, move all the stuff around. It's like, done. It's like, wow, that was easy. I was like, that's what a tool should do, is make your life easy. If a tool's not making your life easy, question the tool. Okay, so using directory. Okay, so there is a lot here. System diagnostics. Hoy vey. So I kind of want to do... Okay, so we're going to try something new. So if context node is attribute syntax, right? Boom. And I think you'll note this fancy button. Boom. Oh, bummer. I was really hoping it would just work. That new fancy fire button is the... Cancel. Is the... apply changes and launch, which is awesome. Okay, so let's see if we can catch it here. So we know we are getting there. Okay, go. Okay, so we're going to kill this breakpoint. I'd like to get inside of this one. Okay, so not know when. That's not the attribute we care about. Because I'm wondering if it's just this name. Generate helpers. See, that was easy. Second one. Okay, so what did I do wrong in my check? So I did this call here. So let's go to our immediate window. Be a little bigger. Paste. That is tiny. I need to figure out how to make this one bigger. Let's see. Argument null exception. Well, see, that's the problem, Robert. Type of assumes that I have something I can do a type on. This is pre-compilation. So I don't have compiled types to work with. I have Roslyn semantic model versions of the type. Okay, so get type info is not Value cannot be known. Oh, it's blowing up because grumble, 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 grumble. Var foo gets. I'm trying to use a attribute here, and it doesn't exist. So turns out that will not work because that is not how C# works. So we'll just do this. We will just declare a foo. There, foo now exists. Okay, so now we go back here and we replace this guy with foo. Boom. Show me your type model. Okay, so how about var t gets, and then we'll just put this whole thing in because I don't want to keep typing this every time. I just want to kind of explore this. T is not a valid identifier. Okay, t dot name. What is that? Generated see? I'm just an idiot. Right? Generated helpers attribute. See? I was dumb and forgot that this doesn't include all the fancy happiness that C# strips off of for you. So that's fine. Okay, so let's look at what's on it, because ultimately what I want to see is how do I get that type of button out of it. That's what I want. Arguments, argument 0, type of expression. So I think I can go after the arguments. I was kind of hoping the argument list would have a... I guess the argument list is going to have to be tied to the constructor, so I can make certain assumptions based on that. Because I don't think either of these gives me like the... Yeah, it's not going to give me anything like that, but it should give me the type of. And I want to find where on here, identifier name, identifier type button. So a type of expression, I want to, because ideally I want to walk, I want to be able to get back to effectively something akin to a system.type where I can walk the hierarchy of it. Well, but regardless, this gives me at least somewhere to go. Okay, so step 1 is go after the arguments. Argument sub 0 is going to be a type of expression syntax, and then from there we can go after the type on it. Okay, so let's change this up. So this goes here, that becomes that. So var type argument gets something akin to this, and I think what we're going to do is hard code this to be a type of expression syntax. We are going to tell you hush now. I think this is probably why. So inside of these Roslyn analyzers, one of the common things to do is to do all of your checks in the starting from least expensive to most expensive, because these things are running as part of your build. Optimizing for performance is critical. What was the count? What the heck was that thing called? Was it count length? Oh, arguments count. We'll just do 1, and we'll do a null prop. So that'll eliminate the need for that. And that should get me into there. So then this guy becomes type argument type get type. That is just the base object one. So that's the type syntax. And now I want to figure out how do I walk up the type hierarchy. So target type, because this will get me close. So the stuff that we need to populate is we are trying to build up. So this target type here is going to end up being this type that goes into this visual element, where I need both its name and its full name. I then need to generate a list of dependency properties on it, and the dependency properties, that's wrong, are going to need both a name and booleans. There's probably a few more things that I need on here. I think I also need things like the type of it as well. But you'll note these are I'm just declaring these as strings, because at the end of the day, all that matters is that I can populate these guys up. So that's what that needs to be there. So I kind of want to know, given a type syntax, how can I walk up the type syntax, Roslyn? How about get base type? Because I really want to just want to walk up that hierarchy. Getting the base class name, simple base type syntax. That is not overly helpful. Get symbol info. See, these are working with class declarations, but this is effectively what I want to do is get. So I'm looking for a base or a named type symbol. So if I can get the name type symbol, that would get me. Let's just confirm. Let's see. I name type symbol foo dot base type. Perfect. Okay, so if I can get myself into a name type symbol, I can start walking through this. So target type, show me just your properties. What I am looking to get is var. I need to get myself to there. Let's see, context. Let's see, semantic model. Get, I think type info, like what we did above, is probably close to what we're after. Can I pass in that? Okay, that gets me somewhere. Var info for the moment. Okay, so if I go info type, yes, bippity boo, yeah, that's what we're after right there. Okay, so if that will get me into, okay, so get type info gets me into where I want to be. And actually, we'll just condense these down because there's not a lot of value in holding that out. Okay, so let's start building up the object that we actually need. And we can kill execution at this point because it's not going to help us. So we want to build up, and I think we can get rid of template info. Cancel. I need to get rid of this debugger launch for the moment. Okay, I'd like to be able to build without dealing with debugger launches all the time. Okay, so we want to get rid of this. I don't believe that causes any compile errors at this point. Excellent. Okay, so each time we land inside of here, we are going to build up a new visual element. So at the end of the day, what we want to do is elements dot add new visual element. And the visual element is going to need a namespace, which for now, I think we're going to hard code. So the intent here is that this namespace is the namespace in which to generate this code in. And so for now, we're just going to hard code this to XAMLTest, because we'll eventually want to let that be specified, but we don't have that at the moment. And so visual element type. So this is going to then be, let's see. Oh, this is actually a new element. So new visual element type. This is going to be its name and its full name. So this will be info.type.name. Info type. Can I get full name? You have a namespace. Metadata name. How about containing namespace.name? I don't know if this is quite going to be accurate, but it'll be, we'll try it and see where that lands. Let's see. Info type name. Basically, I just need a way to separate this out because I need full name plus name above. We'll leave the warning. Let's see. Element type. I'm going to pull this out because this line is already getting way too long for my taste. Okay, so visual element type. Visual element type. And then from here, let's see here. We need a list of dependency properties. So next up for, nope, we're going to do this with new syntax. List dependency property. So this dependency property is not the WPF one. This is my own, because we're inside the generator. This is just a record that holds some data about a dependency property. So let's see. Properties. With all the latest C# goodness. What is your problem? Need one of those. Okay, so that's what we want to build. Okay, so what we are missing now, and I guess I don't necessarily need information about the base types, but I want to iterate over these things looking for valid properties. And I know I labeled this as dependency properties, and I'm realizing that's a bad name because this actually works with more than dependent, like it'll work with straight auto properties too. So let's rename this. This can just be a straight property because it's not just dependency properties. Okay, so what can I get on you? Can I pull property info off of you? How about off of you? Special types to display string with nullable annotation. A lot of information. Interfaces. Get type members. That sounds like what I'd like. I would like to iterate over your members. And ideally, if you'll give me base members too, that would be really... Nope, we're going to have to go through these one at a time, it looks like. So I'm going to move you up. So for each member in get type members, boom, boom, boom. We're going to see if we can get this working without going to base classes, and then we'll circle back to doing base classes. So let's see, get type member. And I think what we're going to do, if context, or I'm sorry, if info dot type is null, return. So if for whatever reason we couldn't get the you're a struct. That's why. Okay. So you are guaranteed not null, but your type property is not. Okay. That's fine. Get rid of that var there. That is annoying. Okay, so that, because that was not nullable, wasn't it? Correct. So let's see. Member, what I want to know is, so you are a name type symbol. How do I know if you are a property? Yeah, all I know for certain, oh, this is type members. Oh, this is probably for like generic types. That is not the members on my type. I misunderstood that. Get members sounds more like that. What does your overload do? Yeah, just by name. Okay, so that's not helpful. Get members returns an I symbol. Just fine. That's fine, but how do I know? So I think there's probably if member is I property symbol. Perfect. So we're gonna leave. I was about to do link here, but I'm gonna leave it off for the moment because I have a sinking suspicion I'm gonna need to handle multiple symbol types. Don't know which ones those are yet, but I have a sinking suspicion I'm gonna need them. Okay, so let's look at property dot. Okay, so what we need on this guy is I need a name, a can read, and a can write. And maybe we should let's hash out some of these. Let's hash out some of these interpolated strings real quick. So type dot namespace. So I need that. And so this needs to be type dot this was class name, so name, what did I call it? Type dot name. Well, so hold the phone one moment, because for example this one was called here. So type dot name, but I feel like I want to append something onto the end of this. Generated extensions. This shouldn't, the length of this name shouldn't really make a difference to people because these are going to be extension methods. The namespace is what's important. Because very rarely do you reference the class name of the static class that contains your extension methods. There are, however, cases where you do it, so I want to be a little careful that I don't go crazy. We're gonna go with that for the moment. That'll be good enough. Okay, so let's keep going down here and make sure we got everything. So this is going to be this is iterating over the property. So let's drop this down to just property. So this will be property and type full name. So we're going to need to add that. Let's see. Property.name. Visual element is type.full name. Let's see. So this guy here also needs to become interpolated, and he's going to be property type full name because this is the name of the property itself. This is the name of the containing object. And this is just a name of expression, so this actually is pretty meaningless as long as it can resolve it. property.name. Yeah, so let's get that type full name added down here. I think we're going to go string type full name. Okay, so that exists now. Let's do this guy. Property type full name. Property name. Do type full name. And this is going to be, because this is the incoming value for the setter, type full name there. And then this guy here, I think, is the last one that we need. Type full name, property name. Okay, so that hashes out everything we actually need. So this guy here becomes, I think we can just get it all in one shot now. Property, add new property. Let's see. So we need the name of the property. So property dot name. Property type. I don't think that's going to be the full name, but we will check it. Let's see. Property. Oh, can be referenced by name. Interesting. I am curious about the case. When would a property not be able to be referenced by its name? I don't think that's like an explicit interface implementation. We're going to go with that because if it can't be referenced by name, we have a problem. But we do need to know if it is read. Sorry, my head is blocking that. Let me. There. I do need to know if it. Yeah, so there's explicit interface implementation. What I want to know is. So here's what we want. Does it have a get method? Get method is not null. So we care about that. Let's just do this. This is probably just as easy to read. Okay, and property, I'm going to assume there's a set equivalent. Yeah, is not null. So that handles getting the property, adding it to the list. This handles building up the element, the namespace. And that should be enough to generate something. Build. Okay. Oh, we are missing a step here because we go to all this effort to build up this file and then we don't do anything with it. And as you might imagine, that's not going to work. Okay, so context, it's just add source. Okay, so hint name. We are going to call this, how about Kevin testing.cs, and we will do, oh, actually this probably needs to be inside the for loop. And actually if we're inside the for loop, we now have access to this guy. How about we call this guy XAMLTest dot, and we'll use the type name. Let's see. Type dot name dot g dot cs. We will do this guy down here, something like that, and then builder toString. Okay, So that should be all it takes to get that from a source generator into our compiled source. And we are going to look and see. Okay, so we generated some stuff. And you'll note now we have compile errors. So apparently we generated some code that's invalid. A lot of it. All right, so I think, where is this file? So generator, XAMLTest generator, element generator. Is that just right inside my... But I thought there was a cool new feature for showing these, and I don't see where it is. Here, let's just check. Oftentimes, there's cool stuff in here. Preview features. Is there anything cool in here that I haven't seen before? There's cool stuff, but not cool stuff that we care about right now. Man, I'm probably going to regret this, but yeah, I used the latest icons. Okay, so I know that one of the cheater ways of doing this is file, write all text. String file name. Boom. And we will go here. File name. File name. Builder to string. Horribly wasteful, not what you should do, but it'll at least get us to what we wanted. And then let's see, XAMLTest button. Okay, so I see a couple things. Obviously, no, stop helping me. So this file got generated and is now existing. Where is this file at? So XAMLTest. It's interesting to me that it doesn't automatically get picked up inside of this. Oh, it did. So hold on, if I turn this off, and I delete this file, so there was a couple obvious problems right away that are worth addressing. I'm just curious if that file ends up getting generated somewhere else. I kind of want to search my OBJ directory. I realize it's probably not being written to disk because that would add a bit of overhead. Okay, so let's put it back real quick. Let's put it back. So a couple things I'm going to note right away. We're doing expression bodied members, which means that line is bad and this line is bad. Okay, so the same with the setter. That line is bad. That line is bad. So we're just going to start with that. And then this should show up right about here. Then we'll go start hunting down all of our errors. So the nice part is this guy, output window, I think is a little cleaner for me to look at. Let's pop this guy here and I'm just going to collapse you for the moment. Okay, so we will start at the top. So line 3, 5, 12. So what is your initial problem? Invalid global code. Oh, public static class, not void, will go a long way. And apparently we got to go static partial class. Let's go make those changes real quick. Those are simple. So static partial class. Okay, that's easy enough to do. Check. Task could not be found, so we got to add in some using statements. So using system threading task, or we have to fully qualify it. I think because this is generated code, I'm going to elect to fully qualify instead. So down here, we're going to do this instead, I think. It's ugly, but using statements can also cause conflicts. And so if we fully qualify at the usage point, that will fix that. Boolean. So this here is not the full name. I assume what I want here is system.boolean. Okay, so we want, let's see, this guy here is these guys. So let's look at what we've got. Property type.fullname. So down where we build them up, we need, this is just type.name, so not surprising that isn't working. Property this is the namespace of my symbol, but I don't want the containing namespace of my symbol. I want the property type.namespace. Converts symbols to a string representation. I feel like I want to be more explicit than that. Containing namespace. Containing module. Language location. I don't know what metadata name is. We're going to put metadata name in there. Whoa, not what we wanted. Okay, so that was a fun keystroke. I kind of want to put metadata name in here just to see what it is, because I honestly don't know. So we're gonna experiment a little. So rebuild, and I would expect this file to get updated with all of our latest changes. Okay, so that is much better. Interesting. So metadata name. So metadata name actually got me what I wanted, but that was the metadata name of the namespace. So I think what we can just do is name. And then let's turn off the we're gonna no, we are going to go path combine obj file name how about XAMLTest generated. And actually, it's unlikely we're going to run outside of Windows given that this is a WPF thingy, but who knows? Who knows? Let's not unnecessarily couple ourselves to Windows. Okay. So that compiled. And in theory now, if we actually come back, let's see, XAMLTest. You'll note my testing apps are getting bad. Let's see, XAMLTest, OBJ. I'm sorry, what? XAMLTest. Generated. Now I'm a little concerned that I didn't get generated, but the proof will be with the test, because if my test compiles, which it doesn't, which is totally exciting. Yeah, so something went wrong. Let's rebuild. See, output. I saw something failed to generate source. It will not contribute to the output. So, I'm sorry, what? All we did was change this, I thought. Oh, directory not found exception. Well, who would have thunk? Who would have thunk it? Okay. Let's see. String output directory gets. We're just going to keep going. We're already this far in. Boom. So we'll drop that in. Directory, create directory, output directory. This becomes output directory. Now we rebuild. Okay, better. See, now we're getting errors. That's better. That is what we would like. Button generate extensions already. Okay, so this seems like we've got a conflict between this guy and the other one. So we're going to get rid of that one. And we're going to load this up. Unauthorized access exception. Well, that just... path, get full path. I want to confirm that I am in fact landing where I think I am. So rerun. And I know I could have sworn I saw a GitHub issue around source generators. Wanting to see it. Access to the path. Well, of course that one's going to fail. So, wait. How is it? What? I thought this was relative to the project file, but maybe the working directory is not that? I mean, I'm happy this is showing me the right errors, but output. Yeah, so it's trying to write it. It's off in Roslyn land. But this, okay, this is just getting annoying. This worked. The issue here was we just ran into conflicts between I believe the issue here was we just ran into conflicts because now we get a file in our project and a file that gets added. So what the heck? Okay, so we're gonna come over here. Let's just look this. Source generator show output. Introducing source generators, blah blah blah. Let's play around with these. Working with these. Finding, yada yada yada. Yeah, that's helpful. Source generators. There we go. Okay. Source generator overview. Generator usage, yada yada yada. That's fine. This guy does some generation. That's fine. But I really want to see. This is the example one, which is why we picked on it. That's fine. Code rewriting. I want to debug this. We will want to come back to packaging as a NuGet package. So we're going to put a pin in that. Because I think consume ms build. That's fine. So lots of very useful information here. Unit testing of generators. Ooh, we may want this. We may want to look at that. No, it may not be overly relevant for us. Open issues. Okay. That's fine. That's fine. Let's see. By default, generated text will be persisted. Is this a... Oh, so maybe we don't need to do this. Maybe we don't need to do this at all. So that seems to indicate I'm going to just whack that to begin with because I just want to be confident that I'm not getting mixed messages here. So let's run that build one more time because I am worried that it's picking up extra stuff that it shouldn't. Same with that. We're going to get rid of that. That should hopefully clean up some of the problems. Be very great if this generated files is subfolder within the command line arguments output directory. So obj debug generated files, something about that. Okay, so there theoretically is going to be something in here for me. I do not see whatever the theory is that is generating. Output. It claims to have generated. So the question is, did it end up there? Because this guy claims to not be finding it, and it should have been in. Should have been in there. So there's a couple things that I am not seeing, and I don't know if this is. Let's see. It allows you to write a simple console application as source generator and observe the generated output and the program output. That's fine. Really happy about this, but it's not quite what I want. Though we're giving that a star because that looks pretty cool, and I want to go back and look at that. This looks also like what I've wanted. So that is probably, yeah, so that's pretty much what we had for our debugging stuff. So let's go back over to here and put that in. So that's probably a worthwhile piece to leave around. And we will do turn off that, turn off that, builder toString. Let's see, immediate window. That is not the hardest way to view this, but certainly not easy. This is definitely overkill. So it's generating, but for whatever reason, the test project isn't seeing it. So if I do, oh, no, that's fine. So what was the namespace that this guy is generating inside of? The type namespace, which I believe we just hard-coded to XAMLTest. Okay, so I expect XAMLTest something something akin to type name generated extension. So I expect something like XAMLTest.button generated extensions to exist. It doesn't. Okay, so let's look this through then. I I don't see why that wouldn't exist. Let's see if we can kick this off again. Because I believe we saw that work once before. Okay, so output. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We are going to abandon this idea. Actually, before we abandon it completely, I want to try one more thing. I'm wondering if the dot in that name caused a problem. It shouldn't, because we got 2 over there. Let's get rid of that. Let's launch this again. XAMLTest. Okay. You know, I am just, because I am not trusting right now, I am just going to check this in dnspy. Because something seems... I'm wondering if it's working and it's just how the test project is getting the reference, maybe? So we're just going to check it over here. Sorry, dnspy. I just hammer you there. So what is inside of the assembly? So underneath the XAMLTest, button generate extensions. Ah, that is the problem. So it is generated, but it's getting into ha 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 ha. So I'd intentionally left it non-public and partial, but perhaps that's a problem. Okay, so let's see, dnspy. Let's check this again. And now it's public. So I'm wondering if the tests just are not, because it's clearly here. Let's look at the folder for the tests. Really? So there's nothing there. Huh? Just blow both of those away real quick and recompile. I'm wondering if this is just a caching problem that's been lying to me this whole time. Okay, so we're going to close you off rebuild, and I want to see output. XAMLTest DLL. So you're telling me the XAMLTest DLL that is here does not contain what is expected, and I'm thinking it should. Does. It does. So why? It does contain the types as I would expect them to exist. So then why does my unit test not see them? So it's there. It's there. Why does it think it's not? Why does it think it's not? I'm trying to decide if this is a timing issue or if this is a... That would be odd if this were a timing issue. That wouldn't make a lot of sense because it's clearly been compiled and clearly shows up there. The output in the test directory clearly has the right DLL. Just confirm that is both sides of the equation. I am doing multi-targeting, so yeah, so 2 errors. Oh, I am noticing this error. Let's see here. Why would that be the case? Is this timing? If this is timing, this is going to be a heck of a problem. Because the intent is to have the source generator run against the material design project and be able to use it in the tests. So if this guy can't generate, though actually, okay, so let's try a theory. So let's go back to making this guy internal for the moment, because I'm realizing that having this in the main project is only sort of half the story. The other side of this is having it exist here. So let's put it here real quick. And let's add, so you can, using XAMLTest, right? So that goes there. And then let's grab XAMLTest. We need the same bit that we did here, but let's put it on the unit test project. Because having it inside the main project is one goal, because I don't expect everyone to have to generate the ones for the base WPF classes. However, having it inside a unit test is where I would expect the use case to be for material design to pick it up. Okay, so this is now really weird. So it's saying it can't find it at all. Okay, so let's comment out that test. Oh, and I suppose that's wrong. It should be get is default. Ah ha ha, now it shows up. So if I just have my naming wrong all along, that's a possibility. I'm sorry, what? We just established that it does exist. See? It exists right there. And this is in the XAMLTest project. Or is it? So let's start with turning this back off. And then let's clean the solution. And then let's rebuild everything. So odd. Well, this makes sense because the generator is generating internal. We want this to be public. We want this to be public. So build, clean solution, rebuild. Interesting. It compiled. Will it run the test? So Visual Studio isn't hip to it. And I wonder what happened. So, okay, that's fine. That's fine. What happens? Well, let's start by rebooting Visual Studio because there's a very real chance that this has just lost its mind. But that appeared to be working. Okay, so just great. That's what we want. Oh, I got the new icons turned on. Oh, I got the new icons. I forgot I did just turn those on, didn't I? I think I like it. That kind of outliney look. Oh, and Visual Studio is now hip to the idea. Oh, so maybe we're okay. Maybe we're okay. Maybe we're okay. So let's just make sure that I can run this test. Yeah, these new icons are going to take a little getting used to, but I think I like them. Okay, so the test runs and it succeeds. This is a good thing. Okay, so now let's look for something on button base because button derives from button base, and we want to test that we can get base classes. So how about is pressed? That'll be fine, right? So cert is false, await button is get is pressed. Right, so that's the next one. Next one that we want to make work. So if we come back up here, don't think we need you anymore. You're more or less working as expected. So we want to do some iteration here. So this is pretty much the bit that we want to put inside a loop, is this bit here. So this looks like for loop abuse. Loop while info.type is not null, and on each iteration info is going to get context, semantic model, get type info, info type, base type. Oh, so we may not. Oh, we may not need to do this. This might just be as simple as this, right? So this guy here becomes nullable. Oh wait, that is a struct. Type I name type symbol, name type symbol, type so that doesn't need to go there. We will loop while type is not null. That should be nullable. I type symbol. Type gets type base type, and then this moves up. Okay, so that gets that going. We don't care about the null check anymore because we validated that. This just becomes type get members. This we need to break out. So it looks like we're going to need that. Let's use explicit types here in these cases. So this is just going to be info type. Let's see. And how about if info type is null, return. Because if the top level guy can't be resolved, we don't even include him in here. And then this should iterate. So we will rebuild the generator. Ooh, even the project icons got. You see that? The projects even got pretty new icons. Okay, points awarded whoever on the design team came up with these icons. They're rather nice. So I like. Okay, so there's that guy. We are going to rebuild the solution. Okay, so we clearly generated some problematic stuff. Let's see. So I would like to open this file. File, open, file. Open. See, you say that this is a file, but I don't see it. You lie to me. kind of want to just confirm that this is not, it is generated. Open. See, not generated any, that's not it. Okay, so I would like to put back the file save. File. Let's see. Write all text. And I am just going to hard code in my path. I think is the easiest way to do this. Let's put it inside of OBJ. So you're going to go there. This is the worst way to possibly write out the file, so we're going to do it. Okay, so rebuild all. Here, we're going to collapse the test explorer for a little bit. We don't need it for the moment, because right now our test is, does it compile? Okay, so now we should have something here. Great. Okay, so the errors in question, let's just go to the top. So line 19. Controls click mode. So this is not the full namespace. So let's go, because this one got the full namespace. So whatever we did for the generic parameter needs to be applied to the return type. Okay, so let's start there. So the return type is type full name and type.type.full name. Okay, so let's come down here. This is what we did here for it. Oh, so we want this, I believe, is the solution there. So rather than just getting the name of the namespace, if we just let this thing resolve with its string, it will give us the full one. Okay, that seems very reasonable. Okay. Okay, so now we've got our full namespace. That's better. Let's go back up to the top and check the next error. Using generic type IEnumerable of T requires one type argument, so 484. So we aren't handling generics well. Okay. 484. So what did we do? So get touch is captured. System generic IEnumerable. So what is that type? Let's see. Button. Touch is captured. So it is an IEnumerable of okay. So we need to come up with a better way of getting the display name for that. So let's see. So specifically, this is, we'll say, the return type of the property here, which maps to the property full name, which I believe is this. So this is the type name. I wonder what happens if we just drop that off. If it is smart enough and hip enough. If type symbols toString will handle it for me. Let's see. Oh, look at that. Oh. Well, that just made my life significantly easier. So So yeah, we're just going to do that, which also means we can get away with that. So if letting the toString there will handle it, that's kind of easier. Okay, already defines get enabled core. So I think we have an issue here of the only way these things could exist is if the protection of them I think we limit ourselves to public. How do I get protection modifiers on this guy? Contain symbol. Because I imagine the only way we're hitting this is if we end up with a property on a base class that is defined elsewhere as well. I wonder if the property itself doesn't have it specified and instead it carries it with it on the get sets. So I property symbol, let's Google this. So I property symbol modifier. Roslyn. Is getter or setter. Syntax nodes in the statement. Blah, 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 blah. That's not what I care about. I do wonder, though, if the modifier is buried underneath the method symbol instead. So let's look here. So this one marks them as static, which means it would have to know what it is. So how does it check? Is externally visible. That's kind of what I care about. Is See, that's what I also worry about. Are you a magical extension method that isn't target method and method symbol? Yeah, I kind of want to find where you're declared. Show me that guy. I would like to see your implementation. Oh, good news. There's not a ton. Symbol extensions. Get resultant visibility. Ah. So I should be able to do that. Property. Get. Are you not? No, member is itself Okay. Oh, of course. This guy is hidden. Symbol visibility public, and then it goes iterating. This guy is get visibility invisible. That makes sense. Well, to be fair, not invisible, public, just not part of the main SDK, which is a little frustrating. And by a little frustrating, I mean incredibly frustrating. I kind of want to just steal this entire chunk of code. Yeah, I think we're just going to take this whole thing. So let's see, raw mode, and we're going to come down here and do, let's actually just go over here. Add new class. It was called something symbol extensions. Symbol extensions. That sounds good. CS, do that, and let's see, copy, paste, and now we clean it up. Okay, so because we don't want all of this. Nullable warnings disable. Yeah, we're gonna get rid of that right away. Let's see, taken from, and we will cite our source because we're gonna royally abuse this. And I'm gonna do that. We're gonna change the namespace to mine. Okay, so we don't care about this. I don't care about this. Do I care about that? Don't care about that. Don't care about that. Don't care about that. Is property with backing field. I really don't care. Let's see. Don't care. Don't care. Don't care. Also, hi Josh. Let's see here. Let's see. Symbol visibility. Of course, this is probably not. Of course. Of course it's not in here. That would be simple, straightforward, and save me time. Let's see. Page down. Take me to the end. Okay, so I think I just need that enum. Don't care about getting any of those. Not even sure I care about this. Get accessors. Oh, that's interesting. That's a very interesting method. We're going to delete it. That's a very interesting method that I'm sure I will get my... wait. So declared accessibility is valid on a symbol. So I don't need any of this. Because I don't have to worry about most of the... Okay, so all of this work, and I think the line of code that I need is that. Okay, well, that was a nice, lovely waste of time. Okay, and we will go with only public ones. Property. Boom. Boy, that was so much easier than what I was about to do. So delete all of that to realize I just needed to check declared accessibility. Because I don't, even though my library can work with internal members, it just feels like you probably shouldn't write a test targeting a private member. I don't think so. Identifier expected. What did I do wrong? Oh, besides leave that in. It just feels wrong to do that. Okay, so what did I... let's see. Obsolete events. So this is now generating warnings because I targeted obsolete stuff. Yeah, let's filter those out too. Beauty of legacy code bases. Okay. And let's do... because we already kind of know the stuff for this. Get attributes. Warnings. What warnings? Yeah, exactly. I don't know if there's a great way to check for this, so we're just going to go with the quick and dirty way. X attribute class. Obsolete attribute. And boom. And it's not obsolete. I didn't think button was going to be so hard. I thought button was going to be easy, but I think we're just going to hash out every possible failure case in one shot, which is totally exciting. But hopefully the end result is then, oh yes, yes, compiled, no warnings. Commit immediately. Commit immediately. Boom, there. No warnings, and I assume the test passes. We'll just run it to make absolutely certain. No publicly visible warnings anyway. Well, of course not. You suppress the warnings and then they don't show up. It's much easier. Test went green. Can't be that bad. Clearly the language service in Visual Studio is not hip to like if you have a generator in the same solution as the project you're generating in, and then you write a project targeting that project that contains the generated code, the language service is not hip to pick that up until after a reboot, but will compile. So as long as you avoid all of those conditions, and this could just be I'm on the latest preview and something's broken. So that's a theory too. I'll probably check and make sure that there's a logged issue for this. Okay, so we have a generator. What are you making, by the way? Oh, you will love this, Josh. You will love this. Okay, so I have a library. Well, we'll back up. We'll back up even further. So this is the repo. But, so I maintain the material design in XAML project, which is a wonderful project that is basically a WPF theming library. And the problem is the vast majority of the code in this library isn't C#. It's a bunch of XML XAML stuff with styles and templates and all of that jazz. And so I wanted to write tests over it. The problem is that's all UI level stuff, and so you would have to use a UI testing framework. The problem is most UI testing frameworks go through the accessibility API because they want to simulate what a user would do, which is fine if you're testing an app. But in my case, I'm not testing an app really, I'm testing a library. And yes, we have a demo app that can work. But the problem with the accessibility API is if you want to write a simple thing that says, create a red button and assert that the button is red, you cannot do that with the accessibility API without doing some wacky stuff with like screenshotting, which is ridiculous. It's like, darn it, I know there's a background property. Give me the bloody color of the background property. So that is what this library does. Is it basically lets you inspect the running UI tree and act on it and write tests against it and do awesome things. It also has stuff for like moving and clicking the mouse and typing text, similar to how like Selenium would do it. So it has that functionality so you can simulate user inputs for like, click on the button to generate the animation. But because I can then act on the visual tree directly, I can like assert that, hey, when I click on the button, the background effect or the background color changes and that kind of thing, which is awesome. It's exactly what you want. And so you end up getting tests that look a lot like, well, something like this. So in this case, this is a test. Or let's go to something simpler. Let's pick on button. So let's pick on a simple test. So for example, this is almost the exact test that I was just describing. Is I want to create a button and I want to do the assertion that the theme color of the button, or I should say the background color of this button by default should be the primary hue mid-brush theme color. Now, obviously, there's a couple key helper methods with this load XAML and get theme color that are buried inside this test space. But all these things do, load XAML just creates it basically kicks off my framework and gets it rolling. And then returns back whatever the root element is in this string. So you can just write whatever you want. But then I can write this stuff. And my test is very, very simple. The only bit of boilerplate that I still have left is I put this little test recorder in here. If it doesn't reach the success line, it'll capture a screenshot at the point where an exception is thrown. So you can then see what the failure state looked like, which is incredibly handy on a pipeline. So, and then it just works, which is awesome. So then I can start writing tests like this. What triggered this weekend is somebody filed a bug on a little expander control. When you rotate it, the whole area wasn't clickable. And I'm like, oh, that's sweet. I'll go write a quick test that, just, kind of clicks through, maybe 10%, 50%, 80% or something, and just make sure that it's going, which is perfect. That's what you want. Except for I realized that there was a bug in my library that when I tried to get the coordinates of a rotated control, yeah, it was blowing up. But yes, the screenshot stuff is highly magical. There is an outstanding bug I have against it because I had trouble getting it to work. And so what I ended up doing is I cheated a little bit. And so if anybody wants to take a crack at this, I would not mind. The screenshot stuff just grabs the whole screen. I would love to zero in on just the window because I know where the window is located. But I kept getting weird cropping issues where I was missing a little bit and I couldn't figure it out because it was in a pipeline, not on my local box. Works on my local box. And I don't know what the difference is. So if somebody wants to take a crack, any of the issues on this repo are completely up for grabs. I apologize. A lot of them are my late night ramblings of, hey, I want something like this, and I don't know what to do. Oh, and thank you for the compliment. I'm glad you're enjoying the libraries. So I enjoy working on them. I do it for fun because it is fun. Sometimes in my day job, I don't get to work on fun coding projects, and so I have to get my coding fix at night. Not to say they aren't always fun, but sometimes work is work. Okay, so that got me where I wanted to be for that. Okay, so if that's the case, I have a few thingy-mabobbers that I want to change. So for starters, we hard-coded the namespace. So I'd like to make that configurable. Because right now it's just always XAMLTest. And I think what we want to do is allow this guy to control it. So let's see what it takes to do that. Or actually, shoot, it's already 11:20. Okay, so we're going to, I think I'm going to get this pushed, and I'll probably call it for the night. But I need to go and leave myself some notes. So git Kraken, view on GitHub. I wonder, is there a view on GitHub? I had sent in some feedback at one point saying what I want this view on GitHub link, but I want to be able to do it on the branch and have it jump auto straight to my branch, which would just be even better. So I try to keep these issues up to date only because I try to keep these things here for what it's worth. So there is that, and that shows that off, and that gets going. And I think I want to do one more comment here. This has an API, but it would be nicer to have the API expose something like an I observable. So I've technically implemented the registering and unregistering of events, but an observable interface would be by far preferred. So, and a lot of these things replace generic exceptions with better type. Yeah. And just for anybody who's looking at using this library, feel free to leverage it and use it for anything that you are doing. Be aware that right now I have, as I'm doing the tags on this stuff, anything that is that hasn't hit the 1.0 release, every release I reserve the right to have breaking changes. So once I hit 1.0, it'll follow semantic versioning, but pre 1.0, I'm just breaking stuff because right now I just want to get it into a good workable state. So hopefully this goes in and starts working, and then we can work through it. So I think with that, though, I am probably going to sign off for the night since it's well past my normal stopping time. Thank you, everyone, for coming and joining. I had fun. I hope people saw something that was hopefully interesting and going. Again, for anybody who missed, I don't know, so Microsoft, oh, hang on, aka.ms/build, and I will drop this in the chat. I'll start my day of work. If anybody missed the sessions at Microsoft Build, I have not watched a lot of them myself, but I've seen a lot of tweets with some really cool technology. So if you're interested in catching up on all of the cool things that were released or announced from Microsoft Build, definitely go and check them out. The videos are going to be online for about a year, so you have about a year to get through it all. So there's plenty of awesome stuff out there worth looking at. One that I will highlight. So the next one that is actually on my list to go and watch is this one here, and I'll just drop this one in. Sans the 3-second. I always love Kendra's presentations. She always does a great job of walking through all of the latest stuff that is inside of Visual Studio. So this is typically these productivity ones. I very rarely watch one of their presentations where I don't see something new that I haven't seen before. So if you are interested, these types of talks I always love going to, because no matter what you're working on, you're probably opening Visual Studio at some point, and there's something to learn. So this is the next one on my playlist to watch. So if that interests you, definitely check it out, because I'm sure it will be helpful. Okay, so now with that, signing off. Have a good night. We'll see everyone next week.